Hey, this is Ryan Crotin from More Than Velocity Podcast. We got a special guest today. It's Ryan Lavarnway. Ryan and I have been talking. He's got, so much going for him with his professional baseball career. He's been playing in the Olympic level. He's doing all sorts of different things. He's moving into a different realm of life. But we're gonna learn a little bit from him about his involvements, but we're really gonna dial in to his career, how he kept himself prepared. I constantly get questions sent to me about preparation habits of players. And sometimes I get them for catchers. And I know what they do in the weight room because I've been leading some of the more physical elements, where Ryan on the skill side, not only just knowing those things to keep his body in check, and the mindset side is an expert. So Ryan, I'm going to turn it over to you, man. Just let's give the crowd an introduction and what you're doing now, and we'll get into it.
What's up, guys? Ryan Lavarnway, just retired from 15 years of pro baseball, 10 seasons in the big leagues, Olympics, 2 WBCs, World Series with the Red Sox in 2013. And I am excited to kind of go through this with you guys.
Yeah. So I think the first question I have, Ryan, is who's the best pitcher you've ever caught? Are you allowed to talk about that?
John Lester will probably make the Hall of Fame. When I think about teammates and I don't want to choose favorites, I just choose which ones either broke franchise records or are going to make the Hall of Fame.
I love it. Love it. That's the best way to go. So, one of the things we're a company that's based on throwing arm health. And people don't really exactly consider catching, on the same spectrum as pitching. But, when people have to, when people got to do the math, the pitcher throws the ball, but someone else has to throw it back to them. Right. And I did a study with some people when I was doing my postdoc at Penn on the injury recovery and return to performance, not just return to sport, but to actually go back to a level of performance or better across positions for Tommy John surgery. Catching had the lowest rate of return. So those of you, if your parents, coaches, scouts, if you're looking at catchers, we have to do a better job preventing injury in this particular population of athlete, because if they do get hurt, you got a greater chance that they won't be the same. And and I wanted you to talk a little bit about just your overall performance process of how you took care of your body and your arm. I think that would be just great to start.
Well, I can talk you through my own journey with arm care and arm health. I grew up in Southern California. I pitched like everybody that was the best player on the team pitch. And when I was 10 years old, my elbow hurt so much all the time that I had to stop pitching. Even though I threw harder than anyone on the field, I would like snap my arm and recoil. That was my arm action. And I always had elbow tendonitis, always. I couldn't avoid it. So I stopped pitching at 10. Elbow hurt on and off all the way through high school, all the way through college. When I got drafted by the Boston Red Sox, they have a team policy that anyone who signs for over $250,000 has to get an MRI of their elbow and their shoulder to make sure they're not purchasing a bum product, right? So they MRI my arm, they MRI my shoulder, and after the scans are back, here's the kicker. They don't give me my own results. I don't know what the scans say, but what they say is, does your arm hurt? And I go, sometimes. And they're like, you're going to do these shoulder exercises every single day. So they gave me a band shoulder program and a dumbbell shoulder program. And granted, this was 16 years ago. I understand the science and the exercise progression has evolved since then. But I was doing shoulder rehab every single day for the first 2 years that I was a pro. Mm-hmm. And my elbow never hurt again.
Yeah.
Flash forward to the 12th year of my professional career. I didn't take an off season for the first time. I sat the bench a lot. I got called up by the Braves and was sitting the bench a lot. So as soon as the season was over, I'm hyped. I'm motivated. Let's just get this thing going. I'm going to be super jacked next year. Start long tossing right away with no time off. And my shoulder hurt the entire year the next year. Mm-hmm. I got an MRI of my own volition, slap tear in my labrum. Oof. Now I start thinking back to that draft scan, and I call the Red Sox 10 or 12 years later, I'm not even with them anymore. They still have this copy of my scans. That's the slap tear that I had when I got drafted. So slap tear labrum, made my elbow hurt because it was compensating. Did the exercises, didn't have an issue with it for a decade.
So it's interesting you mentioned that, because there, almost all athletes in baseball, if you played from the time that you're like 6 years old, are going to have some type of asymptomatic slap tear, because you need to throw hard, and over time, to get external rotation range of motion, you're creating stress at that point. You're more of the slap tears, the issues come from layback, and the bicep tendon, it rolls as you go back, and it can create tension. And what you mentioned is that, good on that organization that they saw this and they put you on a process right away. And that doesn't always happen. When I worked in Major League Baseball, the only access we had to any kind of internal details was with the Dominican team. The high, you're going to put multi-million dollars into, a 16-year-old kid. We knew everything about them, and it was kind of scary what their arms were going through. But you mentioned something really interesting about not taking time off as a position player. And, on the pitching side, we recommend at least 2 weeks off. They don't have to take a super amount of time off, but 2 weeks to, kind of have active recovery, improve your arm strength again, because in the season you have a lot of fatigue, and we monitor that. We look at arm strength fatigue, which is pretty interesting. And, kind of what you're learning now, you could have made that adjustment. And with the technology that, being able to assess your arm, it would have been a lot easier for you to say, hey, wait, I got to fix all this stuff before picking up a ball. Now, we talk about the body. I need to take this a little further, because this is the podcast called More Than Velocity. And, I wanted to kind of, because you're in this motivation world, you're in the mindset world. That's really something that I think is important that people don't understand. Mentally, what was your routine? What can, athletes learn from listening to this podcast on how to go about a good mental routine?
So I'll answer your question specifically as a catcher, because it sounds like you don't have a lot of catchers on this program. You need to understand that your main goal is to win the game, not to show up and get hits or hit a homer. And to win the game, you have the opportunity to make the biggest impact by what you do with your glove behind the dish. So you have to focus every single pitch on how you present the pitch, framing it, steal strikes. Every strike that you steal, 200 to 300 points of batting average against that you're saving, especially if you do it in the 0-0 or the 1-1 transition counts. Beyond that, you're giving your pitcher confidence. You're reading swings, reading the pitch out of the hand, seeing what is working that day, because you go into the game with a game plan. That's another part of the mindset, that scouting reports and understanding your pitcher's repertoire, that's a whole nother issue. But in game, play with your eyes, trust what you see, and make adjustments. Don't be a robot and just go straight on the scouting report. Beyond that, you're also a teammate with your pitcher, but you have the chance to be a coach on the field. And a lot of times the best catchers turn out to be really good sports psychologists on the field.
Definitely.
Some of the best moments of my career, or the things I'm the most proud of, are when I could go out to the mound and I knew my pitcher well enough to read his body language, or to listen to what he said when I got out there, or how he responded to what I said or a situation that just happened. And I was able to tell him exactly what he needed to hear to be his best. Sometimes I even call it tricking him into being as good as he can be, because pitchers are different animals. It's a lonely place out on that mound. Even if you have 9 guys on your side and 40,000 people in the stands cheering for you, you are all by yourself. You have to throw it against the batter. In the big leagues, you're facing the best in the world, and it's man versus man. Playing softball, woman versus woman. Nobody can help you. But as the catcher, I need him to know I got his back, and I need him to know how good he is, or at least trick him into thinking it.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, so there's a lot that you unpack there. And, I wanted to touch on something you talked about, the catching extra strikes. there was a team, when I joined Arm Care, it took a little bit to start putting content out, but we have about 50 plus hours for free. But a team reached out to me because they had seen some of this stuff and said, Ryan, we want you to come in and talk to us about why you think we have a lot of arm injuries, and we can't figure it out. They got all the technology, they got all these people dedicated, and they wanted to figure out how to manage this. So the first place I look is catching, because, when people ask me, what are the causes of pitching injuries, right? And it should be intuitive, but it's pitching. The more risk you have, it's associated to the more throws you make, because they're getting hurt based on throwing, not walking off a curve and landing on one arm and jacking up their inner elbow, because that's my thing, is the elbow injuries. But I went through the data, and StatCast is really interesting because you can really see how catchers frame and how they are able to steal strikes. And so when I looked at this team, I said, well, this is interesting. When their first string catcher, gloves the ball, he's got a lot of coverage in the low zone, not only the low zone, but on the backhanded side into, a left-handed hitter. Okay. And again, they see more righties. There's less damage down and away, especially off the plate. If they chase, they get weaker contact. But what's interesting is that when this first string catcher started playing less, injuries, fatigue, all these things I asked about this first string catcher, they had to use their backup more. Okay. Now their backup, that particular zone, he was probably one of the worst in the league to be able to handle that. And you start, playing more games, right? Over 80 games. So one of the effects was they went from 16.4 pitches to 16.8 on average per inning, okay, per pitcher. And most people are like, that doesn't matter. It's like 4.4 pitches. That's thousands of pitches, right? Thousands of load that they could not save. So I remember going into the meeting, they're like, so what should we do? I said, well, I need to understand what you do with your catchers. How do you condition them? What are they taught? And the whole thing was like, we're in a world that's like mechanics. Not only that, we're focused so much on pitching velocity, nobody cares where it goes. And so that forces the catcher to be even better. Okay. Now, one of the things I want to ask you, because of your career and your catching specific knowledge and ability, how did you manage the low and away off the plate strike, okay, or the low and in on the lefty? Because I hear different things like a double hinge where basically the ball's coming into the body. How do you handle that? Because the catchers that are listening here, if you are able to be effective in receiving the ball, and Ryan he's mentioning this, I want to echo it, you are contributing to a healthier game for everyone. Catching is the most important thing. So I want to know technically, what to do there.
Yeah, healthier, and you're going to win the game.
Yeah.
Which sometimes in this day and age of skills and homers and velocity, you forget that you play to win the game.
Yes.
So I played through a transition in the catcher position, the transition in how it's evaluated, transition in what's considered important before the StatCast era and then after the StatCast era. I was taught early in my career the give and turn on the low pitch.
Okay.
Pocket goes down with the ball, wrist goes up. Then I transitioned away from the Red Sox to the Orioles. It was keep the thumb underneath.
Oh, yeah.
Show a sandwich to the pitcher. Later in my career, it was turn the doorknob, thumb down to thumb up, or elbow up to elbow down. A couple different ways to talk about it. On the outside pitch, another thing you need to consider is how is your body setting up? Are you intentionally blocking the ball from the umpire? Are you intentionally trying to give him the best view possible? What are you doing? If you're a one knee setup guy, you're expecting the ball on the right side of the plate. Do you go left knee down so that you can angle your body back towards the middle? Or if there's a right-handed hitter up, do you intentionally have your right knee down so that the umpire that is between you and the hitter, the umpire always sets up between the catcher and the hitter, has a full view of the plate. And if the umpire gets a great view of the ball, there's a better chance that they call it a strike. So there's a lot more things to consider as a catcher than most people even have the bandwidth to think about.
I'm going to hate this answer. I know it. But in your opinion, what's the best approach to that part of the zone? I do feel that if
Hitting?
catchers are able to handle it, and if they need more mobility, if we got to teach them to have just better body control in those positions, or the thing I worry about this one with the thumb, I was always taught, like, if you got your thumb down, you could have problems. But if you could mention, like, what would be, in your opinion, the best approach, setup, strategy with the glove, all those things to steal that pitch, I think there could be an amazing improvement in health, which is where I'm really focused, is how we keep players healthy.
So there's two buckets that what I'm about to tell you falls into, and I'll get there. The best catchers in the league either have a ton of movement with their glove or have virtually no movement with their glove. And I'll give you the two examples are he was Tyler Flowers. He led the league in receiving metrics for multiple years. Also led the league in most balls not caught. He would reach between his legs, back behind him, and rip his glove up through the zone as fast as possible, leaving it up to the umpire's guess of where did I actually catch that ball. Did not stick it at the end. It was a full big wave movement. Catch it, throw it back. You don't know where I caught it, but my glove was moving up, catches your eye, you call it a strike, even if I don't catch it.
Wow.
The other side of that is Roberto Perez, who won 2 back-to-back gold gloves at the catcher position. Looks like he is falling asleep when he's catching. There's no relax mechanism. There's no frame. It's just, here's a target, ball hit my glove, stick it for a second, throw it back. Nothing happens. Had one of the best receiving metrics in the league. So there's 15 different ways to skin this cat. I don't know why people are skinning cats. It's disgusting. But the point is, understand how you're trying to do it and get really good at that way. Because the same way you can hit 10 different ways, the same way you can throw from 10 different arm slots, if you do it right, you can do it your way.
Yeah. So I love it because it's really profiling. I mean, that's what we do with our device, is really understanding, like, the athlete's arm strength. And then you got to look at anatomy. I got one athlete that's got the slap issue that we realize he's going to have way less issues as a side armor and trying to lean and get his arm up, which hurts him anyway, because it's a chromium. But that's amazing. Now I want to end this with, like, what you're doing now. What is baseball? Because there's some guys, we've had some former managers, we've had some former players on this thing. Like, what does life look like for you now that you're fully retired?
Well, I'm not playing baseball anymore, but I'm still involved in the game. I'm broadcasting for the Rockies. I'm doing pregame and postgame shows on TV, hoping to get more involved in some colored play-by-play as we go. I'm going to take some reps down at an independent league ball team about 45 minutes away, get in the booth during the game. Excited about that. I'm going to be working on this with you, giving some mindset motivation speeches. And I'm flying out to the Hall of Fame later this month to play in the Cooperstown Legends game. So that'll be exciting.
Oh my gosh. That's amazing. Now, if someone wanted to get a hold of you, is LinkedIn your best place? If someone wanted to message you, or, how would somebody ask you a question? Social media?
Yeah,
I mean, they're gonna listen to this podcast.
Yeah, I manage all my own social media. So reach out to me on LinkedIn, Ryan Lavarnway. LinkedIn's just your name. Instagram, R Lavarnway.
It's not the real Ryan Lavarnway. There's not 6 of you.
It's not a common name. There's only a couple of us. There's a lawyer, there's a kid, and the skateboards or something. You'll know it's me.
Okay. Amazing.
Listen, or check out my website, ryanlavarnway.com.
Listen, for you guys that are, attending this podcast, I significantly want to tell you and position you to kind of follow the things he puts out there, and really kind of look at his career, because Ryan has been able to play at the major league level, but he's also played, internationally. He's seen a lot of the world through the game. I've had the fortunate opportunity to play in a lot of places, but I don't know, Ryan, you probably agree that once the game's gone, the most important thing is the relationships you build. And, I'm just excited that we get to know each other, and we've met, and I'm hoping people who, are really parents that are socializing your kids through the game, to focus on relationships, be a good person. If they're a catcher, you listen to what Ryan said, because you are a psychologist, you are the motivator, you're that, there's a brotherhood there. So, Ryan, thanks so much for what you shared with us today, man. And I just wish you the best of luck
Thank you, brother. And we will be working together going forward too. So I'm excited for that.